coming to you live from the Build 4 Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti, it's Boomer and Gio on the Fan, simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network and wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Tuesday morning. This is a bit of a different day during football season. Boomer is out in Ohio somewhere. It has to be, as Al was saying, a paid speaking engagement for him, so he will be back tomorrow. So that means that Jerry is here this morning. What's up, Jerry?
Gee, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little bit, you know me, I'm a routine guy.
Yes.
And if my routine gets thrown off a little bit, I get anxious a bit. So not only is Boomer not here, which is thrown off the routine, but also I had to drive my mother-in-law in from Sayville to the radio station, and she's here right now in the control room because she's having a procedure later today in Brooklyn, and it just made sense because it's only like 25 minutes, a half hour away from here, the hospital, that why don't you just get up and jump in the car with me, and then we'll ride in together, and then you can hang out with Eddie and Al in the control room for a little bit, and then we'll send you on your way.
That sounds nice.
Yes, it sounds nice. So I was thinking that she would talk more than she did in the car. So it was pretty good, actually. It wasn't bad, so I commend her.
All right.
Yeah.
So you actually had company, and it was nice and quiet.
Yeah, but I don't see, you know the drive-in. I love the drive-in, actually. People say, how do you do this? I'm like, well, the drive-in is great. It's only the drive home that stinks. Like the drive-in, it's quiet. You get to think about things. You think about the show. I throw on the overnight show. I listen to the crazy callers, piss off wherever the host is. Like, it's nice.
And as you've seen going down to Colts Neck a few times, for us, it's very nice going home to Jersey in the afternoon, too. So we get it both ways, whereas I know you get it on the way in. But, yes, I agree with you. You decompress. You can turn the radio off, listen to it, do whatever you want. I agree with you.
So I was a little worried about that. But she was good today. I commend her for her reading the room and the situation. And knowing
she made up for it, though.
What's that?
She made up for it.
Oh, how?
What does that mean?
During the warm-up show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Oh, she was talking Eddie's ear off. Yeah. So I told you about this, and it's got 2 dogs. And
Well, it's got to be a very exciting day for her, though, to watch the show live. It's great.
Yeah, no, it is. And Eddie loves Louise. Eddie is a fan.
Yep.
So that's what we have going on here this morning, Jerry. So it's good to have you. And it's good to see you, and I am now going to get back into my normal routine because that's what I need to do. I need to focus on that.
I actually thought you were going to go the Maggie and Perloff route today because they were loud.
Yeah, they were. I don't know what's going on back there.
I walked back to see Allie. Like, it is like a party back here. And then I saw you in your office. You look like he wanted to put your head in your hands and just shut up.
I don't know what was going on with them. Generally, they're pretty quiet.
Yeah, not today.
Yeah, I don't know if they doing some sort of drinking challenge or something? Like, did someone lose a bet and now they have to be drunk and high on the air or something?
I don't know, but they were going over show stuff.
Oh, yeah, they love that show stuff.
They
love that show stuff. They do the whiteboard and everything. They break it down.
Yeah.
Perloff actually calls Maggie on his drive-in, and then she's got him on speakerphone.
It's like you and Boom.
Yeah, right.
Don't see each other till 6 o'clock. Oh, you showed up today, sir. Good morning.
Good to see you. Yeah, what will I be listening you talk about today?
That was one of the things that Spike said when he worked here, that he could not believe the non-communication of the morning show and then how we would have it figured out by airtime.
You know what I feel? I look at us, and it's been like this since the beginning. I look at us like a baseball team.
Yeah.
We each have our individual jobs, and when we do them well, it works.
Yeah, of course.
When we don't, it sucks.
Right, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And actually, the first couple of shows I did with Boomer, he told me he did not want to talk about the show before the show. Like, I don't want to do that. You just do what you do and then go for it. And I learned throughout the years that no matter what I said, it didn't matter because he was going to talk about what was in his head.
Yes.
So like so then this is what I'd explain to people is like I would just go over I would just mention whatever the top stories were and whatever thing out of that he wanted to talk about, he would go and talk about, and we go from there. And then the rest of the editorial decisions from how we start segments would generally be mine unless he'd lean over and go, I got something for you. You know how many Samoans play defensive tackle for the Washington Commanders? 3.
Been there.
3. So then I'd be like, oh, that's great. Now let me go into something that people care about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how it works. But then we don't. Then that same thing carries over with you and I, unless it was a totally dead day, like nothing going on at all. And then I'd be like, what do you think of this off the board type of situation? So there is no off the board situation today. I did want to mention this Adam Schefter interview with Pat McAfee. I don't know if you happened to see this yesterday. So Pat McAfee's talking to Schefter about the game in Germany and 2 bad teams and going down the tubes. And it seemed like the Carolina Panthers in a miserable season were having a good time. Like David Tepper was out there drinking beers and Bryce Young played well. And they had a special moment in a crappy season. And here were the Giants, the complete opposite of that. And their owner is not drinking beers. He's not having a good time. It's another one of these miserable seasons that are going down the tubes. And he said, so what's going on with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen? And Adam Schefter said, well, we'll go back to what John Mara said a couple weeks ago about how they're safe and he doesn't anticipate making a change. But he said the same thing about Joe Judge. He said the same thing about Ben McAdoo. And then several weeks later, they were gone. But I think this is different.
I do too.
Really do believe this is different. I know people say that I'm crazy when I say this because it's following the same trajectory as these other guys, but not to the point of where it feels like the team doesn't respect the coach. And if it gets there in the next couple of weeks, then yeah, everything's on the table. But it's certainly not there right now.
To me, the only way the change is made, in my opinion, is if they get blown out the rest of the way every week and they look like there's no compete level coming from anybody on the field. I haven't seen that. Have they been good? No. I mean, we were at that Eagle. We saw it up close and personal. If you want to tell me they died in the second half, all right, I might buy that one for sure. But I thought they came out. They were ready to play. I thought the game plan was right. They didn't execute on offense. Defensively, I thought they were very good to start that game. This weekend, they don't score. They do things well defensively, although I didn't think it was great this weekend. They did get run on a little bit, and Bryce Young, and not that they were good, but they certainly look better than I expected them to look, meaning the Panthers. I believe this is different, too, for a variety of reasons. I don't feel like at any point that Brian Daboll's been overmatched. I think we could say that with some of the past coaches. I don't feel like Brian Daboll's been disrespectful to the media, which I think we can say that with Pat Shurmur. There were signs with some of these other coaches. Ben McAdoo fell apart at the end when he looked like he had a pretty good handle on the job. The other part I have trouble thinking they would fire him would be for this reason. You're going to tell me you're going to bring in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, and you're never going to give Daboll an opportunity with a quarterback that he wants. I'm not saying he didn't make it work year one with Daniel Jones, because he did play relatively well. The contract to me, I thought stupid at the time, but whatever. He played well, went to the playoffs, and things fell apart. Yeah, last year with the injury. This year's been a mess. I cannot believe they would let these guys go without giving them an opportunity at their own quarterback.
Yeah, which puts them in a tough situation because now they feel like they have to draft a quarterback in this draft if they're put in the first couple of picks, which they probably would, or they land in the first couple of picks. So, you know, there was a similar situation in Minnesota this past year where the general manager had to draft a quarterback because of the way that he went about his business and the salary cap and paying Justin Jefferson. It was like, the only way we can make this work is if we draft a young quarterback. Mm-hmm. We got to get one. There's no two ways about it. And he missed out on the draft the year before. Apparently, he loved Anthony Richardson, and he didn't end up getting him, which I guess is a good thing. But then he had to draft a guy, so they ended up getting J.J. McCarthy. And I don't even know how much they love J.J. McCarthy. They just had to pick him because there was no one else left at that point. So the reason I bring that up is because I think the Giants might be in that same situation. It's like, okay, they love Jaden Daniels. They like Drake May. They couldn't get those two guys, so now they're going to be in a draft where they have to get a young quarterback because their jobs are dependent on that. Joe Schoen picking the right guy, Brian Daboll nurturing that guy into a Pro Bowl quarterback. And what if they're outside looking in again like they were last year? What if they're not up there? It's so hard to build these teams. And if you want to point to one thing that has held the Giants back all these years, and you can go, chicken or the egg situation, whatever, John Mara hiring Gettleman, hiring Joe Schoen, it's the drafts, man. Just look at the drafts. I mean, there are 2 picks that completely screwed over the Gettleman tenure, which was Daniel Jones, obviously was the worst one, and then taking Saquon Barkley number 2. And then you look at some, and I like Joe Schoen, I really do, and I would not fire him at the end of this year, but you look at, there are a lot of big misses from Joe Schoen. Huge. I mean, go back to 2022. Obviously, Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, Wan'Dale Robinson's been an okay player for them, and Josh Ezeudu. Those are their first 4 picks in that draft. Whoa. All right, then you got the number 1 overall pick in 2023, Deonte Banks. Ugh.
Not good.
John Michael Schmitz, who was a rookie last year. I guess he's done a little bit better this year, but he was ranked like the worst center in the league by every one of the analytics people last year. And Jalen Hyatt's in that draft. Doesn't do much for them. And then, this past year, you got Neighbors, who you like, and then, you got some, like Tyrone Tracy was in this draft, too, who looks like he's okay. But
looks like a stud.
Why are the Giants so bad? Terrible draft picks. That's what it is.
It's a big part of it. And I want to go back to one thing you said, too, about, the Vikings and Anthony Richardson, and that's who they wanted. And your comment right there, right after it was, maybe it was good that they didn't get him. It goes back to the inexact science of the draft.
Yep.
My point is, whether they reach for someone, have to sign someone in free agency, and draft someone that's going to be a project, I don't know what the answer is. But here's what I do know. I would not let them go until I see them try it with their guy. Whether that is a free agent, we went over the list yesterday. It's not great. I totally understand. Or whether it's a reach or someone they do identify in the draft that they like. I got to give them that chance because I really do believe these guys know what they're doing. I know it sounds crazy because they haven't been good. The record stinks. But I also see, I told you, you guys know I did the game with Brian Baldinger the other day. Yeah. And I don't want to speak out of turn because these were not on-air conversations, but I think these are things he has said too. And we were watching that game in London. They had it on the big board in Tampa, and that flea flicker play, he just shook his head. And he goes, he just doesn't release the ball. Like, he's athletically, he does a lot of really good things. My point is, it's worked at times with Daniel Jones, and at other times it doesn't. And this play right here almost epitomizes what his career has been.
Yeah, the flea flicker, yep.
It's just, let it go. I mean, and he hasn't been able to do that. You tell me, is that the game plan? Is that the play call, or is that the execution? Which is why I come back to saying I think these are the right guys, and I got to give them that chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brian Daboll a little bit more so than maybe Joe Schoen at this point, but you got to stick with them. You can't hire a new general manager and then have the coach stay because that GM's going to want his own guy. We've seen that happen many, many times. It's not the way to build an organization. But, I mean, if some of these guys worked out, this team would be right in the mix, and they just haven't. I mean, the fact that Evan Neal couldn't get on the field until week 10 this year. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau's hurt again, and when he's out there, he seems to be an okay player. I mean, Deonte Banks has quit on multiple occasions during games.
Yeah, no, that's been problematic.
I mean, these are his first-round picks.
The Neal one, to me, is puzzling because I don't know that there's anybody out there that thought that was a bad pick at the time, given his college career.
Well, same thing with Kayvon Thibodeau, though.
Right, who I'm not ready now. He hasn't played much this year because of injury, and I really do feel like him and Burns together, it's a shame that you haven't seen them every week because that might be, and it still can be, that might be a pretty good combination in terms of pass rush. So I'm not ready to quit on that yet. But the Evan Neal one to me is, we always talk about drafting offensive linemen. The game is won on the line of scrimmage, whether it's creating pressure defensively or protecting the quarterback and run blocking. And I feel like whatever regime it's been, they've really tried to address that. The Neal one to me just doesn't make sense. The way some guys and then other guys you pick in the 6th round and they have 15-year careers. Yeah. It's bizarre.
You know, it was funny. I ended up going to, I think it was a Trevante Davis fight at Barclays Center right after that draft where it was Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, and Sauce Gardner were all drafted that year. And those 3 guys, and I think Garrett Wilson was also drafted that same year. But anyway, so all 3 of those guys, not Garrett Wilson, were at the fight. And I remember, Sauce Gardner and Kayvon Thibodeau, and I'm not blaming them, having the time of their lives. They're up and they're taking pictures, they're laughing, they're having a great time. And Evan Neal was just like totally focused and sat down, like didn't have a drink, was just watching the fight. And I was like, man, that guy's going to be a beast. Like he really is focused on football. Ends up that he was the worst of them. them by 10 times.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that you could sit there and evaluate a football player by watching him watch a boxing match, but it's just like,
No, but
you know?
there's this. I can imagine a seriousness about a guy you think he's all business.
Yeah,
I
right.
could totally see what you were saying.
Yeah, and he came from Alabama, and I was
Yes.
like, man, this guy's going to be, he's probably going to leave this fight and go to the gym, you know?
The one thing, like you say, Alabama, the one thing that fascinates me when like going over these rosters and these teams, whether it's been the Bucs or the Niners or the Eagles or any of these teams, how many of those guys and the big-time players come out from programs like Alabama, like Michigan, the big schools. You sit there and say, how do they fail if they excel so well at the highest level of college football? And then you've got guys that come from Appalachian State and it's just. Yeah, it's you go be a GM. Good luck.
It's really, really tough, and that is a good point too. I mean, I don't think any of these picks that the Giants made at first, like anybody was really killing them. I mean, do you remember anybody like Malik Neighbors' pick? I liked. I thought if you weren't going to get a quarterback, you got to be able to get a playmaker. I mean, I didn't have any problem with selecting Deonte Banks when they selected Deonte Banks. All right, you need a young corner.
I do wonder, and I know this is revisionist history, and you can't do this. I totally understand, but I really do wonder where this season would have gone had they won that game in Washington. There was a different feel. There really was, and then it has just tanked since that point.
Yeah, I also think there was like at least for the Giant fan, I don't know about the team, but like that, the only team you could beat in the division was them.
And you beat yourselves to lose to them.
Right. And they had the young, exciting quarterback that you haven't had. I mean, that was just, it felt like it was like a turning point. Like, okay, now we're the worst. Well, the Cowboys are giving them a run for their money, but there's injuries and everything else. But it's like, okay, now we're absolutely the stone worst. It used to be them, and we were bad, but now we're the worst.
It's amazing how quick it happens, too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you go from, week 3, okay, maybe. Here we are. It's week 10, not week 18. And it just feels like end the season already.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's really the discussions that we're going to have. And John, it's going to come down to if John Mara can hold himself back and restrain himself from the idea of Bill Belichick coming in for like 4 years to try to put this team back on track. Like sort of like a Bill Parcells with the Jets situation. I like to see how old Bill was at that point. He's definitely younger than Belichick is now.
Parcells
sure.
where?
With the Jets, like how much younger was he? Was he like 15 years younger?
I would say significantly younger, I would
20
think.
20 years younger?
Because Parcells is 82 now, I would say?
Yeah.
Belichick's 72. Parcells was with the Cowboys in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, true.
So he had to have been in his late 40s.
So he took over that's it? So he took over in 97 with the Jets, and he's 83 now. You're great at math.
So 27 years minus 83. So he was, 46? 56?
56.
56.
Yeah, so that's a huge difference, man. I mean, Bill's
56 to 72. It's a big difference. Yes. Doesn't mean Belichick wouldn't be up for it. The only thing, the thing about Belichick is without a quarterback, and you'd be coming here without a quarterback, it's almost, you feel like it's almost a total rebuild. Does he have it in him at 72 to want to go through what might be a terrible first season? I don't know.
Unless he believes in one of these quarterbacks and the Jets, the Giants end up drafting him and he's like, you know what, this is the guy. Trust me, I know. But he felt that way about Mac Jones.
And where's he now? Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, yeah. All right, Boomer and Gio with Jerry and for Boomer this morning on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.